I was surprised to hear President Trump say that it was going to last 4 weeks when we know that he likes a quick victory. Netanyahu likes a prolonged conflict. So perhaps there was already some influence going on there from Israel to say, let's see this through. Israel has a high pain tolerance. Israel's prepared for war. Their public is prepared for war, and they're willing to see it out to the end.
Britain has now given the US permission to use our bases. Keir Starmer says America will be allowed to launch defensive airstrikes on Iran from Diego Garcia in the Chagos Islands and RAF Fairford in Gloucestershire. Last night, Keir Starmer gave this address to the nation.
The United States has requested permission to use British bases for that specific and limited defensive purpose. We have taken the decision to accept this request to prevent Iran firing missiles across the region, killing innocent civilians, putting British lives at risk, and hitting countries that have not been involved.
And indeed, overnight there has been an attack on a UK RAF base in Cyprus that was hit by a drone. No casualties have been reported.
Meanwhile, President Trump says the war will now last 4 or 5 weeks. He also said that he killed Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, before the Iranian regime killed him. He told Iranians that they should rise up against the wounded regime.
I call upon all Iranian patriots who yearn for freedom to seize this moment, to be brave, be bold, be heroic, and take back your country. America is with you. I made a promise to you, and I fulfilled that promise. The rest will be up to you, but we'll be there to help.
It's an interesting point. Will that stance hold as US casualties build? I mean, he's had 5, I think it's up to 5 already killed, some very seriously wounded. How long will that stance persist? As he said, it could last for weeks, this. Will there be an appetite in America to see it through, if they even know what it actually is? The war is also widening this morning, as expected. Hezbollah and Israel clashing in Lebanon. Let's talk to the Times Israel correspondent Gabrielle Weiniger in Tel Aviv. Gabrielle, morning to you.
Good morning.
What's the latest then in Israel? What are you hearing? What's happening?
Well, Israel retaliated to Hezbollah joining the front with Iran. We're hearing that 31 people were killed in those Israeli strikes. It's the first time Hezbollah's launched projectiles and drones at northern Israel since 2024, and its decapitation by Israel in September and October 2024 when they launched their pager operation. Interestingly, the missiles came from southern Lebanon, which is supposed to have been demilitarized. So that shows that plan didn't really work. We were watching whether Hezbollah would join, given that it was kind of Iran's biggest insurance policy against Israel attacking. Hezbollah's been so weakened since 2004. It didn't even respond in the previous confrontation with Iran that we saw in June last year. So it's very interesting that they've decided to join. I think they were in a bit of a catch-22. If they didn't attack Israel, they wouldn't receive any more money from Iran, no more backing. If they do, which they have now done, they've got a big internal problem because they're very politically weakened. The current president is trying to get them out. They're going to lose a lot more legitimacy, and they're going to be blamed for the retaliation that Israel's going to rain down upon them. They've now put Lebanon in a very bad situation where Israel's not going to let it go. And I think we're hearing from Israeli intelligence sources that this will be their swan song.
And presumably Israel were already geared up to be able to fight in 2 directions at once. They knew that Hezbollah would do something, so they were ready to respond and will continue the planned action against Iran.
Certainly, they'll do a multi-pronged attack. In fact, even before the launch of the operation against Iran on Saturday, Israel had already begun striking Hezbollah quite severely in southern Lebanon and in Beirut as well. So they were very much ready for Hezbollah to join. And they'll also be keeping an eye on the Houthis in Yemen and to see whether they're going to retaliate or join the fight as well. So it's opened up the war front, certainly. And last night we had I'll call it a quiet night in Tel Aviv. There were no air raid sirens coming from Iran because we're staying near the sea. We did hear a retaliatory attack from Israel towards Lebanon around 3 a.m. That was the only interruption that we had, actually, in Tel Aviv last night.
Gone about as well as it could have done.
I think the initial gambit paid off really well for Israel, gave them a lot of confidence. Last time President Trump called an end to the fighting, Israeli planes were actually turned around mid-air. I remember we spoke that day on the 12th day of the war in June, and Israel had to call it all off. It will be interesting to see if Israel pushes to continue to fight Iran to the death, as it were, and to try and push people out onto the streets, which in my opinion is unlikely, because people don't take to the streets under fire. And there's also not a strong armed opposition in Iran to take over. So we'll have to see what kind of leaders come out if that is the aim. And if Netanyahu and Trump, who have been speaking on a nightly basis, will agree when is the right time to end the war. I was surprised to hear President Trump say that it was going to last 4 weeks, when we know that he likes a quick victory. Netanyahu likes a prolonged conflict. So perhaps there was already some influence going on there from Israel to say, let's see this through. Israel has a high pain tolerance. Israel's prepared for war. Their public is prepared for war, and they're willing to see it out to the end.
And presumably they're willing to take some civilian casualties when these Iranian missiles come back in the direction of Israel. But I wonder whether they feel confident that they've degraded Iran's capabilities to such a large extent that becomes less and less of a threat.
I think what they don't want is a similar policy to what we saw with Hamas over the last couple of decades, where they had a policy of what was called mowing the lawn, which is a horrific way of looking at it, where they went into Gaza in limited operations to get rid of Hamas and degrade Hamas on a yearly basis, even sending in troops on the ground. The Israeli public won't stand for that, because this puts the entire economy and people's lives to a halt. There's no schools, there's no offices, the streets are empty. So I think it's not just about degrading Iran, it's removing the threat of Iran. In terms of civilian casualties, it's a painful thing for Israel. It's a very small country, people know each other. One death kind of has ripple effects on everybody. And yesterday in particular, there was a horrific attack on Bet Shemesh, which is a city just outside of Jerusalem, west of Jerusalem, where 9 people were killed who were sheltering in a proper place, which was authorized by the city to be a safe space. And the roof collapsed when a missile, 500 kilograms of explosives, hit the roof, and it caved in, killing all those and trapping them inside. Those kind of events really shake the public, particularly when it's in a supposed safe space. It shakes their sense of security.
Just before you go, do people there in Israel notice the UK's stance in this, sort of flip-flop, less than full-throated support for the US? Does that even get noticed by the Israeli media, by the Israeli citizenry?
It's a really good question. It absolutely does. I think that Israel really feels that it's fighting this fight for everybody. Israeli intelligence has suggested that Iran was developing a weapon that can reach 3,000 kilometres, which would be enough to reach London. I saw a document yesterday that suggested that Cyprus, or hitting Cyprus, is a hint to pressure Europe to negotiate a truce, because what Iran was doing in the Gulf hadn't worked and actually had the opposite effect. So the document I saw summarised basically that the Iranians are deliberately provoking Europe, and Europe's turning a blind eye. And I think Israel really feels that it's almost the face of the battlefront for that, and they want to stop this terror from spreading across the world.
It's an interesting point, that, and what the UK's role in this should be is one that I think will be occupying many people who are waking up this morning in this country. Gabrielle, stay safe. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
That's Gabrielle Weiniger there in Tel Aviv.